I could not get to any next level without evolving and adjusting my mindset and adding knowledge all the way. The two had to go hand in hand. I think it's really good to consciously say to ourselves, I don't know everything. I am open to learning.
All right, we are live. Welcome to the Ronin Mindset podcast. My name is Didier, and today it is Monday. We have an extra special guest. This is going to be a lot of fun, I guarantee it, and you will get a lot of value from this, I promise. Susan Bachelder, how you doing?
Fantastic. Happy to be here.
I have been looking forward to having you on because I know your backstory. I know the things that you have overcome, and I know, all the challenges you've faced in the past, say 15 years, and for you to go through all of that and end up where you're at is nothing short of miraculous, but it's all due to your mindset. Unstoppable.
Absolutely. You know what's really cool about how you introduce me, etc., is there's some parts of that phase of my journey that only you know. That's what's unique about this. There's some parts that only you experience, kind of along with me because just the timeline and what we were doing at the time.
Right. So we worked together. I'm going to let you tell your story, but we worked together about 10 years ago in a company, and we ended up collaborating on some projects and ended up developing a friendship over time. So that's why you're my homie now.
And we were regularly creating content around the concept of mindset and how it applies to business. And then the very first time that we met in person was right after a massive turning point for me. So that's really the key piece that only you know, because you're the one that saw me, right before, and then the astounding difference almost immediately after. So
it was a great
cool
difference, and we're gonna get into that. But let's back that up. Back that up a little bit further, because you were a RN, right? A nurse.
Yeah, a critical care registered nurse.
Okay, and then your life took a different direction
In an instant.
What happened?
The kind of sudden impact that none of us can plan for, that in the blink of an eye, your life completely changes. You don't even know at the time how much it's about to change. So I had a car accident in 2005. Shall we just dive right into it?
Dive into it. Let's do this.
Okay. So it's important to mention it, to really frame where things were at the time of impact, I think, for everybody to hear. And I was well, I was healthy, I was fit, I loved my career. So it wasn't just a critical care registered nurse, but I was team leader in the ICU in our trauma center. I educated students, I preceptored students, I brought on new staff members, created training. Like, I was fully involved, loved it. It was a part of my life. And then outside of that, I was renovating old house that I had bought and was raising my kids in. So my days off were busier, and I worked harder on my days off than I did in my career. So I never sat still.
And this was
active,
in
healthy.
Saskatoon.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Canada.
Yes. And then the car accident. So just like that. And it wasn't, the car accident itself wasn't all that severe. It was a twisting, shearing injury that literally took 6 years to really sort out the depth of it. And it was a tear in 3 ligaments right at the base of my head, where your neck and head join, the 2 vertebrae. There's ligaments in between that keep them together and allow you to turn your head in so many movements. And so I had such severe pain, but they can't see on regular x-rays, even regular CT scans and MRI. You can't see those particular ligaments. And they just kept on brushing it off as soft tissue injury. You have whiplash. It's all in your head. Yeah, it is all in my head. It's massive pain, like my skull busting, headache, and then the muscle spasm would carry into my whole body. I literally was housebound, mostly bedbound, for 9.5 years with excruciating pain. It was unbelievable. So,
What year was the car accident, or when was that?
2005.
2005. Okay.
Yeah,
So you were pretty much bedbound from that point onward. Like you couldn't work, you couldn't do your nursing job. All that phase of your life was over.
correct.
So,
Yeah, and even the way I was living and raising my kids needed me to be active, be doing stuff, lifting things, pushing things, walking, running. All of that was done. In fact, there was a period of 3 months where my legs were paralyzed. So,
wow.
in and out of the hospital, appointments, raising the kids from bed, it was literally everything changed. So that's the physical story part of it. But I think the greater impact that affects the conversation and brought us to where we're at, and really what we talked about is our mindset. So how we perceive ourselves and how we think it affects so many facets of our everyday life. And I defined who I was because of what I could and did do. Does that make sense?
Hmm. Oh yeah.
And then when I lost what I could and did do, who was I? That was the greatest impact. Who was I? All of a sudden, I was no longer a nurse and a great nurse in my career. I was no longer a great mom. I was still a mom. I was no longer a nurse, but I was still a mom. But in my opinion of myself, I was no longer a good mom because I defined a good mom as the activities that I used to do with and for them. And in fact, it turned around so that they were often helping me, Steve. What? Like that is so impactful on your self-esteem. Like, the pain would be so bad I would be vomiting, and here they're holding my hair up. They're helping me get dressed. It was I no longer believed that I was valuable. So that was
Well,
the
that's gonna hit your like you said, your sense of value, your confidence, your self-worth, your mindset involving how you approach everything in life.
yeah. So that was my first hurdle, is to believe that I even deserved help, believe that I even deserved to get past that hurdle. Yeah. So I had to switch that, and it wasn't easy. I didn't know what resources to go. So thank goodness that I am so relentless and stubborn. Always have been. My poor parents. And so I just kept on seeking and searching. And this is a cool little tidbit. I found it. I found my initial, I guess, thread to grab onto, or rope to grab onto, by a video game that my son suggested.
Really?
Yeah,
A
and this
video
is,
game. What video game?
I can't even remember the name of the game, so I'll just describe it. But it's so I was seeking methods of distraction because the pain was so intense, and they just gave me narcotics and muscle relaxants, but the pain was so intense. So my first modality was how can I deal with this pain? Number one, how can I deal with this? Stay conscious so I can parent. And so I was always looking for distractions. There's movies, there's shows, I memorized all the dots and lines on the ceiling of my bedroom. And reading was a favorite pastime of mine, but I couldn't read. Like, my concentration is gone, and sometimes the vision would go because the pain is so bad. So, and you can only read so much, and the days were long because I couldn't sleep. So I had more than everybody's usual 24 hours because there wasn't much sleep. So distraction. And then my son suggested this video game. And in this video game, you build a community. It's more like medieval times, and you're building a community, castles, you're farming for the food, you're mining gold so that you can buy the supplies to look after this village. And then you have to go out and you have to conquer beasts. And so you have to name your character. And I was a Ronin at one point. And so you can choose what kind of, are you a warrior? What are you? And then you have to name your character. And so I just created a name that wasn't a word or a name. And it was Zelemia. And so I was Zelemia, and I created a town, and little bit by little bit. So I farmed, and the crop grew, and so that was a success. It's so interesting. It was a game, but it was the little success. I just needed little successes. I just needed
It's
to
stacking your
accomplish something.
wins.
Yes,
Stacking your wins.
yes.
Even if it's in a different
Realm.
venue or a different realm. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had to escape into a different realm so I could succeed and build on the layers of my self confidence. And so that was one of my ways. And another way to distract myself from the pain is I would go to the beach. And so I was at the beach. I could feel the sand in my toes. I could smell the salt water in the air. I could feel the wind through my hair. So I got as real as I could with that visualization. And then in this game, I layered on all the wins. And so I essentially created an alter ego. Then I took it to the next level. And this alter ego was everything that I needed to get back to be. She had features and a look, and she was mighty, and she was strong, and she was walking, and she was doing this, and she was doing that. And so I would picture her, and then I thought, well, this name from this game is pretty cool. So this alter ego became Zelemia. And it followed me through many years into my business because I still needed that. And then it just shifted, and I became her. So then I didn't need that, but always aspiring to a next level, a next level. And like you said, those micro wins. And then all of a sudden the mindset did shift, but it needed to be fed the right environment.
Right. Well, it's very important, especially when you're talking about things like confidence, building your confidence, and with people who are battling things like that. Not necessarily energy, but in their mind. With me, when I lost my real estate business, and I was left with those same questions you have. So much of my identity was tied up in who I was as a real estate agent and as a business person, and how much I earned and all that. And then it was all stripped away. I was left with those same questions, like, oh, who the hell am I? Like, it's kind of scary. But with the depression and everything that came with that, and what I found myself to do, and the way I kind of dug myself out of that hole, is that same sort of thing. Okay, you get your confidence back by stacking little wins. Whatever, and it doesn't have to be big. And it's weird that you kind of explain that, because that's the exact concept. But through a video game, that's very interesting. For me, it was like, okay, I'm going to get up early. I'm going to get up when I really don't feel like it, whatever that was, 5:30 in the morning. And this was back in 2009 and 10 and things like that. So I would get up. Okay, that's my first win. I'd force myself out of bed, and then eat something nutritional. Okay, that's my second one. So I would just, these little things you kind of normally, to me, they were wins.
Huge. And in the realm that you're in, or in that space that you're in, they're huge.
Yes, and if you can keep stacking those little ones, that improves your confidence and your mindset so much. So it's just interesting through a video game. I've never heard that before, but it worked.
It worked. And I think it's important to note too, escapism, or the strategy of escape, is not healthy on a regular basis. But when you need to, and I guess that's where our judgment is really important. Well, it's always important, but in that instance, our judgment is vital. That at what point, like, when is escapism a good strategy? In that space, it was a must. I had to escape. I couldn't stay there. I had to make sure to come out.
Yeah, you can't just go there and say, it's funny, because I know people who do things like that. Like, they may have not a lot of confidence in themselves as a public speaker. So they'll create this character that they see as powerful and extroverted and dynamic and forceful and everything that they want to be. And they'll create this character and then step into that character before going on stage, or before getting on a sales call, or, when they really need to perform, they assume this identity that they've created. So that sounds something like very similar to what you would do with the Zelemia. Now, I remember hearing Zelemia and seeing it in different things, but I didn't know that's where it came about.
Yeah, that's where it came to me. In fact, my initial website was zelemia.com. And
Love it.
one of my mentors, a common person to both of us, David, Dave Sharf, he said to me, "When are you going to drop Zelemia? It's time. It's time for you to be Susan Bachelder." And I remember him saying that and asking me and really challenging me. And at first, no, I am her. Like, obviously, I wasn't ready for that, but I needed to hear that. I needed to hear him say that. And it was probably, I love that it happened and I didn't know that it happened, but it was probably about 2 years after that. But so I took note, I heard him, I knew it made sense, but obviously I wasn't ready. I was still hanging on to it.
But it planted the seed. It planted the seed.
Oh, I think so. I think so. So, hint, hint, the power of being mentored, choosing mentors.
Yeah. Choosing mentors, ones who will actually speak truth into your life.
Yeah, be very cautious of who you listen to, but do always have someone that is further ahead or where you want to be, someone who has what you need.
Right. And and I just had a conversation on another podcast with AJ Adams, powerful guy, business marketing genius. We had that similar conversation of finding a mentor, but we took it one step beyond. It's not just somebody who has what you want, but somebody who is who you want to be. You know, and that's an important distinction for people because so many people get wrapped up in the materialism and all that kind of stuff, but they don't look at necessarily at the qualities of the qualities that the person has inside to model themselves after. But we digress. What I really wanted to ask you, and this is both for my own information and for anybody listening, it's how you made that switch. Because obviously, when that happened to you, and you were bedbound, and you were in so much pain, and you were doing a little bit of escapism and creating this character, all while that was going on, and you couldn't move, and you had to, I don't know, I realize a lot of it's stubborn and relentless on your part, but what was the mindset shift? Like now you were forced with not being able to do what you normally do that you were passionate about in your career, but also that supported you and your kids. So you now had to take your new situation, which was very difficult, and figure out a new path forward to actually make money, support your kids, pay for your house, everything that, room and board, keep a roof above your head. So how did you make that transition? Because a lot of people, I think, faced with the same circumstances may just throw in the towel.
Yeah, understandably
So
so.
what was it that was going on in your mind when you were forced to make that transition?
So there were so many steps in between. I mean, we could be here for hours, but
Got time.
so one of the would you agree that one of the greatest powers for pushing us, forcing us into change, asking good questions, and moving through something and evolving is the absolute need.
Yep.
And that's what I had. So I had an absolute need to work on my mindset, and I had an absolute need to create other source of income, another source of income. Now, before I dive into that, to answer your question, I was so fortunate, so unbelievably fortunate, the way my parents raised me around the concept of money. Because I took my very first paycheck from my nursing career and started investing. So I had been investing from first paycheck in my career. It was meant for my retirement, but the need arose. So
Right.
I was able to live off of that, and my house was paid off because of that same mindset of, I double and triple paid down my mortgage because I did the calculation of how much interest I'd be paying for the full amortization
Scary, isn't it?
of 30 years, and it's scary. And I thought, I want to tip the table on that. So I had a money mindset already. I've definitely improved it since, but it was already in place, luckily. So luckily. So I had that to pull out. So I leveraged that. First of all, I leveraged it with credit. And then I pulled it out and used it. And then I leveraged the equity in my house. And then, so I leveraged upon leveraged upon leveraged, lived off of the equity I already had. And then the table tipped. And it was really challenging because then I dug a hole of debt. But it was all required. It was all required because the healthcare wasn't cheap. In fact, I spent over 300,000 of my own money on the healthcare and seeking answers. I traveled all over the world for that. And then, of course, raising children is not either. So, single parent of two kids. So
Yeah, kids are not cheap.
no, not at all. And then I got to a point where, and it was in my mind before that, I need to make money. I need to figure out a way to create more income. But the impact of the lifestyle change, and I still didn't have firm answers of the preciseness of my injury and a solution. I did not have a solution yet. And
So there was no light at the end of the tunnel.
none,
Nothing for you
zero.
to look forward to and hang your hopes on and be okay. Once I get here, it's good.
No. In fact, all the practitioners, experts, and everyone that I had seen up until this point where I needed to make money were all just still telling me, this is it. This is as good as it gets. And it was awful.
So what does
It was
that
crushing
do
and so
to your
overwhelming.
mindset? Yeah, right. So what does that do to your emotional state? Like if you're like, okay, as far
Yeah,
as you know at the time, that's all you had to look forward to for the rest of your life.
that's it.
So now it's time to sack up and find a way to make money,
That's right. So
despite all of this.
despite all of that, so that brings us to the fall of 2011. So 6 years from the time of losing my income and career and all of that stuff. 6 years, and then I was at a point of desperation. I had just had another surgery. They had implanted this nerve stimulator device. So I was, post-op and looking at all of the numbers, feeling so overwhelmed. And I've just had this surgery with a battery pack implanted and wires going up to my head. And I was just, I remember the moment as if it was yesterday. I was so overwhelmed. Our vocabulary doesn't have a word of impact, but let's say,
Despair.
yeah. Yeah, I was so desperate. And I thought, I have to make some money. So I have my laptop that's all been used for games and creating motion videos out of pictures of the kids at soccer. And that was my other
Yeah.
pastime. I would take pictures and make them into movies, which interestingly enough turned out to be some great skills that I learned.
Yep.
I didn't know that I was
Who knew?
I was getting ready with all of these digital skills. I was getting ready to do what we do now. So then, can you imagine what comes up when you Google how to make money online? At the time,
Every
I
scam in
didn't
the
know.
world.
Oh, surveys and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how I got started, out of desperation, and I searched ways to make money. I purchased two things, actually three things immediately. One was Mike Dillard's magnetic sponsoring. Got the whole package, and at that time it was still delivered to you. So I still have all the DVDs, the books, everything.
Cool.
Really cool. At the time, I didn't know what value I was purchasing. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, Mike Dillard is kind of an OG in the internet and online marketing space. And I can imagine that there was a really significant amount of value in that.
Yeah, I went through it from beginning to end, all of it repeatedly. So I purchased that. I purchased a course of websites, how to build websites and how to source wholesale products, drop shipping, so e-commerce. Because at the time there wasn't Shopify and plugins, there was no automation. So I purchased a course on how to do that, and then a course on affiliate marketing. So that's how I got my start. I started, and I didn't realize at the time the value of that either. So I started from building from the inside. So how to create a website, how to source products, how to put it all on your website so that it is sellable, create your shopping cart and everything. And then on the other side of it, SEO. So it all went into search engine optimization and how to get eyes onto the products that you're selling. So my first paycheck was $11 and I forget the change, 46 cents, I think. I think it was $11.46. And my first real like worthy of celebration was the first month at 40,000 visitors to the website. And it was howtogetripped.com. It was exercise equipment and nutritional supplements. But it had great search term, and at the time, Samuel, who you know as well, was very much into working out. So then that allowed me to, that was time we would spend together. I would ask his opinion. So do you think this piece of exercise equipment, do you think this set of weights are better or this? So it was a way of us doing something together, some dynamic communication, get his
Bonding
opinion.
time.
Yeah. Yeah. And then sometimes then he would search which brand was better or whatever. So it was something that we could collab and do together.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That is so cool. And I'm going to back you up for 1 second. You said your first win that was really worthy of celebrating was the 40,000 visitors. I'd say that at first $11 profit was the biggest win of all.
Yes. Yeah.
Like you built everything, you have everything in theory, you've done all the work, you've learned, but it's still all hypothetical at that point.
Yes.
But when you get, I don't care how,
That
when
came
you start
first
your own
before the
business,
40,000 visitors.
yeah, yeah, everybody got to start somewhere, and you're not going to go from zero to millionaire in overnight. You have to take these steps, and believe me, earning that first, whether somebody's looking to get started in e-commerce or whatever it is, that first actual profit is the biggest milestone of all to me. I don't care if it's $5 or 30 cents. I don't care. The $11, it doesn't matter. That is huge because then it becomes real. If you can make $11, you can make $100.
You can scale up. If it works, you can scale up from anywhere.
Right.
But
Exactly.
you can't scale up something that isn't working.
Right. And
Yeah.
the other aspect of that is like you took action. A lot of people stay in that hypothetical phase or the learning phase or the getting ready to get ready to phase and never actually pull the trigger.
I took massive action, sometimes maybe too much. I was obsessed. Like on the keyboard, sometimes tears rolling down my face, and I was at that laptop on the keyboard. If I had, like this, what we're doing right here, an interview, or if I had arranged a meeting, a lot of times SEO was the big scary thing. So I would do, what value can I offer? So that's what I moved into then. All what I learned, then I would teach it. So I would teach SEO, etc. But it would come time for the call that I had scheduled. It was Google Hangouts at the time, and I couldn't get up. I was in so much pain. Like I could have forced myself, but I was in too much pain to speak if I was sitting up. So I'd end up having to do these calls in bed. I looked awful, but it was about massive action and showing up.
And gutting it out because you did what you have to do. And
Oh
that's
yeah.
and that's kind of when we met in, was it 2012, I think?
Yes.
So it was right around that same time, right after you'd got started in e-commerce and everything else. And when we were collaborating on projects, a lot of times that would be the same thing. You would be flat on your back in bed, barely able to speak.
Yeah.
And for me, I almost felt bad. I'm like, we can do this. And you're like, doesn't matter. It's going to be the same tomorrow, the next day. So let's get it out.
Yeah.
But
That
that
was the
takes,
tricky thing. I would have to explain to people, I'm crying because I'm in pain, but like, how do you separate that? Like, thank you for your compassion for feeling bad for me, but you can't fix it, and we have work to do.
right, exactly. So
That was
shut the hell up and
just as
let's
much
move
of,
on.
yeah, that was just as much of a challenger because I ended up helping people feel better because they felt bad for seeing me. Like, you know what I mean? Like it was a vicious circle here. I'm trying to make them feel better. It's okay. It's okay.
Right, right. Well, I think people naturally going to have you could tell them, oh, I'm bedridden in a lot of pain, but then when they actually see you or something like that, they're like, Oh God. Okay.
And they're wondering, I'm like, never mind. Let's get back to work.
Yeah, don't mind me. Don't mind. Well, that's one of the things that struck me about you because that takes a lot of grit. That takes a lot of determination. That takes a lot of inner strength to do that and push through that kind of pain. And it takes a certain mindset that you're just going to do what it takes every single day, no matter what the obstacle is.
Yeah. Can we talk about why for a minute?
Sure. Why is always the important? That's the motivator, right?
Right. If it was just for me, I'm not sure if I would have pushed through as much. I don't know if I would have had the same grit. I had kids to
Okay.
feed and kids to look after. So if ever I wondered, I just can't do this today, I would just look in their eyes. So my why, and that, sometimes it's said so often that maybe it loses some of its weight, but my why did make me cry. My why did pull out the grit. My why did make me dig deep for the courage and the strength and the wherewithal and to ask better questions so that I could do better or so that I could learn more and get where I needed to go so that I could evolve through this. But it was always about them. That was my driving force. They literally were my why. And then it shifted to, okay, I need to work harder. And that year that we met, 2012, was when I learned about the possibility and potential of stem cells being my solution. And so as soon as I learned that, then the underlying why was still the same. It was for them. And then there's a second why, if we have time, if we could go back to the second why,
Oh yeah,
because I think it's
absolutely.
powerful.
Absolutely.
So I started researching that could be my solution. And then if I were to do that, I had another little hurdle, deserving hurdle in all vulnerability. I didn't quite believe that I deserved it. So my children deserved me to work hard and provide for them. But I wasn't sure yet at that point if I deserved the stem cells, like to work hard, because they were not cheap. So they were between 15,000 and 30,000 a session.
Okay. So, and that's another thing. I'm glad you brought that up instead of just looking at the, oh yeah, I pushed through because my kids, raw. I think that's not invalidating because it's a powerful drive, especially for a mother, I believe, and fathers too. But I think a lot of people hit hardships in their life and they look at something that they want, or they look at your story and they be, oh, okay, well, she got stem cell at 30,000. I can't get that. I don't have the money for that.
That's what I did.
That's too much money. Right. So there was a combination of like, well, that's so far out of reach, and you don't even kind of entertain it. And that's what's fascinating to me is because a lot of people are limited by, and I have been in my past, limited by their self-belief. Oh, well, that's out of my reach. I can't. That's 30,000. I can't do that. I can barely put food on the table. So that's when you start asking those questions, right? Like instead of, oh, I can't do that, how can I do that?
And it took me a solid year and a half. So first I was striving to create income to cover the bills. That's it. And provide for my children. And that's all I could digest at the time. That's all I could do. And then I had to work on that deserving and the future. So how can I, and here comes your how question. How can I continue to scale up and increase my income in this state?
Right.
How can I do more when I'm in this state of being, this state of what wellness, this state of
Right.
health?
The state of
Because
excruciating pain.
yeah, because there's all the other long-term ramifications of chronic pain. It starts affecting every organ in your body, and that's the point that I was at. I was at a tipping point where it was affecting my cortisol level had been so high for so long that now I was in cortisol depletion. I had no cortisol, so everything, my energy. That's when the depression hit. In fact, the year that we met, July 8th of 2012, in all vulnerability, was the lowest point ever, and I entertained suicide. So that was one of the pivot points. I was so ashamed, so ashamed that I entertained that thought. And that shame, acknowledging that shame, drove me to make some decisions. Okay, you got to this point. What are you going to do now? How are you going to turn it around? How are you going to be better and do more? Have a look at those solutions again. Because if you don't put your oxygen on first, you can't help your children put the oxygen on. My other why, and I call this the moment that this why came to be, and it included Samuel and Jessica, but it was a bigger picture, and it helped me drive force to everything else I was doing, and I call it my compass decision. I made it in this moment where I was in the hospital with these paralyzed legs. I'm looking at these legs and they won't move. My mom had come in for the day. Both the kids were there. I had been up in the chair to visit with them, and then I was getting tired, and I was going to push the button to call the nurse and ask to go back to bed. And Samuel was 8, Jessica was 6. And Samuel said, "No, Mom, don't call the nurse. I'll do it." That's the kind of son he always was. I'll do it. And so I said, no, it's okay. I'll call the nurse. No, I'll do it. So he insisted, and he helped me back to bed. He was fixing my legs, straightening them out. Jessica, 6 years old, jumps up onto the bed. She's at my feet, and she faces me, and she's wiggling my toes, looking at them, talking to them. And she said, come on, toes, get moving. Mommy needs you." And I just, when time stands still, and I scanned that, I looked at Samuel, like, talk about, so there's a moment of gratitude, or there's a feeling of gratitude, like, thank you so much, you're so amazing. I was so proud of him. He's so amazing to step into his manhood as a boy, to want to help and do that. It's
especially at such
brilliant.
a young age.
Oh, it's so great. So great. And then at the same time, so that's the positive side of it. And at the same time, your ego, like, I'm supposed to be looking after you. You're 8.
Mm-hmm.
Crushing. Then I look at my mom, she's crying, and it just, time stood still, and I scanned the room and scanned the situation. I was a professional critical care nurse, and now I'm a professional patient. Like, look at this. What do I do now? I don't know. I don't have an advocate. I don't know what to do. What a situation. Wow. This is how it feels when people have, this is how my patients would feel when they had a devastating injury or illness or something. Wow, this is how they felt. There was so much happening in that moment. Welcome to my now what everybody calls ADD mind. It was like, so I made a decision and it was so interesting how it came back, which is why I love reflecting on this moment. I didn't ask if in that moment. And in my weaker times after that, I went back to, remember that moment where you were determined and decided? It wasn't if. It was when I get myself out of this situation, I want to be a resource to empower others in this situation, whether it's the how-to or the spirit, because I felt so broken. I would have loved for somebody to just say, it's going to be okay. It's okay. I would have just loved that. I didn't know how to ask for it, but that's what I wanted. That's what I needed, is somebody to say, it's okay, you're going to get through this. So then I just had to be that. So that was my compass decision.
Supporter.
Yeah, because my situation isn't, I'm not the only person that has had sudden impact. We all have some degree of sudden impact. So I decided I wanted to be that resource for other people. in that moment. So that was always in the back of my mind. How can I help? What are people going through? What do they need right now? And of what I have to offer, how can I help them? It helped me always. It was my compass decision because it guided me to target audience. If we know who we're speaking to, we can get specific. That is one of your great skill sets. We have to be specific. And so if it starts with the audience, who are we speaking to? What are their needs? What are their pain points? What are they seeking? What are they looking for? And how can we be of service? How can we provide that? It'll always keep you in work. Goes back to a lesson that my dad taught me right from a child. Decide your work or service based on not what everybody needs today, definitely consider that, but what will they need in the future? So he was a water well driller. He knew that he would never be able to work because people were always going to be needing water. So what can we do? So that was the second layer of the why. So back to that darkest moment that I was very, very ashamed of, and thank you for hearing that, because I think it's important to say it.
Yeah. No, I think it's important for some people to hear it.
Yeah. Yeah. So then asking that how. So how are you going to change this now? And stem cell
So how did you change that?
Yeah, so I kept on researching, and once I decided that I deserved it, interestingly enough, I found the clinic. Once I decided I deserved it, it's almost like the universal energy provided the information. So I had been researching for a year, and it was the tipping point of deciding that I deserved it, and then 3 amazing clinics came up within my search. Spoke to all of them, decided on a clinic, and Dr. Gonzalez was so amazing just in that first call, and then I had a second call because I had more intense questions than most of his patients. In fact, he was a bit taken aback sometimes.
Well, you were a critical care nurse, so you kind of know what questions to ask.
Yeah, I was trying, and I remember telling him that I'm trying really hard to stay on the patient side, but I can't help it.
It's in your nature.
Yes, and so there's no way that I could afford it. So still to go back to what you said, where people stay, it's not an option because I don't have the money.
Right.
And so once, again, the energy, what you're open to, and what you are seeking, it's just, reticular activated system. We see different things once our consciousness is open to it. I'm not sure, but within 6 weeks, I made the money.
Wow. That's amazing. And it was all through e-commerce and everything you were doing online, just to pieces. Yeah, it's a lot of times when you make that decision or you start accepting you're worthwhile or you actively start seeking by asking the right questions again, how,
Yeah.
then the ways, the path will appear.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
it was basically
absolutely.
the same thing that you were doing and had been doing for a couple of years. It now opened up.
Yes. I accelerated. I took things to the next level. So I started building my email list. I had, for the first time, I had a high ticket offer to offer people. And I promoted that really hard through the email list.
Yeah, there you go. And then that's actually when I met you because you had the stem cell injections down in Mexico.
November 2014,
You know the exact date.
over Thanksgiving. Actually, like it was October 14th or 15th, and then we met the week before Thanksgiving.
Right, because I was living in Playa del Carmen, Mexico, and you had gone to, where was it, Matamoros, or where was the stem cell clinic?
Progresso.
Progreso. Okay, so you were in the northern by the border of Texas,
Yeah.
and the doctor told you after you get the stem cells all injected and everything, you need to chill out for a couple weeks, so you decided what better place to chill out than Playa.
That's right.
Right, so we went from virtual social media type online acquaintances
Yeah.
to actually the stem cells themselves were pretty miraculous because I had seen you for several years on your back crying in pain, unable to walk to the mailbox and get your mail and all that kind of stuff. And then I was picking you up at the Cancun airport, and you came running down the ramp and actually smashed over a trash can. And I barely recognized you because this is not the Susan Bachelder that I had become friends with and had seen
Yeah.
online in pain and incapacitated and bedridden and everything else. And you were running, ah,
Swinging my suitcase, knocking garbage cans over.
swinging. Yeah, it was like
It's
a
okay.
Mario
First
Brothers
day with
video
my
game.
new legs.
First day on my new legs. Yeah, like a baby deer. So that was
And the
like,
guards with the guns are looking at me like,
yeah, like what's going on here? Is she in danger? But even me, I was like, holy shit! Like, wow. The stem cells are, that's we could do a whole discussion on that. Really don't want to get into the medical stuff, but absolute night and day difference for you in terms of repairing. Now you've had to have them since and stuff, but I remember you were just walking on the beach. You were in Playa for like 2 weeks, and I remember you were just like, "Wait, what'd you do today, homie?" And we're like, "I walked for like 5 miles."
yeah,
I just haven't walked in a decade, so I kind of want to walk. I was like, "Yeah, understandable."
yeah,
Understandable. And then Winston mugged you with hugs and everything.
yeah. Oh, that was such an amazing moment meeting Winston, and just the whole experience of. I mean, we had met already, but that was the day that we had some time to hang out and chill, and I got to meet Winston, and then you were all worried like because he did his slow big dog curl up on me, and I hadn't gained my strength yet, so I couldn't stay sitting up, so he just and I just fell right backwards.
I was like, no, don't hurt her, don't hurt her. But he was so gentle about it, but you just were just like, yeah. Ah, I was like, oh, I am so sorry.
Yeah, imagine that. Like, so spending that much time, 9.5 years, mostly just resting and laying back in recliners and on your bed, you lose so much of your core strength that even he was so gentle, I could not even hold myself up based on his little bit of pressure to come and say hello.
Yeah. Well, he was like 95 pounds. So
Yes,
it's,
but
it's a
still.
little bit of weight, but
Yeah.
yeah, that was so funny. It was so amazing to see the transformation. And then, obviously you've gone on and accomplished a ton. Like, what are you working on now?
So now it is all of what I focus on is passive income.
Right.
Passive income streams and doing the research and due diligence, trying everything in the background before offering it to others. And I have a business partner, Bren, and yeah, so we have a community where we offer viable, reliable, passive income streams. And of course, I'm an active investor, financial asset trader.
Right. Yeah, I feel, and I feel like we're kind of skipping over a ton of stuff, but that was really the part that I have so much admiration and respect for you, is overcoming that kind of stuff. And then, obviously you took what you learned, you took your newfound sense of health and energy, and, obviously you've kept learning and kept growing and achieved, large amounts of success. But I mean, all of that was due to your mindset, and the mindset and the thought process that you adapted in your darkest hour, and that determination and that grit and that absolute non-negotiable resolution to see it through.
Yeah,
And that's powerful.
yeah. I could not have done it, Steve, if I wouldn't have addressed my mindset
Yeah.
and
It
added
is all
knowledge. So
mindset.
the two go in together. So with my before the pivot point, before starting the journey, and all throughout the journey, I could not get to any next level without evolving and adjusting my mindset and adding knowledge all the way. The two had to go hand in hand. I I never, and I hope everyone hears this, and I know you don't either, but I think it's really good to consciously say to ourselves, I don't know everything. I am open to learning. And that's one thing that I am grateful. I never ever assumed even skill sets that I had, quote unquote mastered, or I had become good at them, great at them, created results. There's always more to learn, always being open to learning. So I think that was one of the greatest things. And again, like you said, that goes back to mindset. It was the perspective of knowing that you could learn more, seeking to look up and look out to either books, audio, video, mentors, people that were already the people and had the knowledge and expertise that we don't yet have. We've never arrived. It's a journey. We've never
It's
arrived.
always a journey. And one thing that I've seen, I take pride in myself in being adaptable and always trying to learn new things and what have you. This podcast being one of them. It's been in a huge learning curve, from getting equipment because I'm taking the whole thing on the road, right? So I had to be mobile. So I got the baddest webcam there is, 4K, and then that overloaded my computer. I had to get a new laptop because the graphics card and the RAM couldn't handle it, and it was all this learning journey just on the equipment and then the software and then editing and then marketing and all of these things I had no experience with whatsoever. And but it's fun. You take your lumps. It can get frustrating, but it's something new. And one thing that I've noticed is people tend when they get older, they tend to not be as open for some reason to taking on new things or learning new things. And that is, to me, that's really sad because when you're older, you've got a lot of experience to rely on. You have a lot more solid view of who you are. And that, to me, that's almost a better time to learn new things, to open yourself to new experiences and take on new challenges because you have a lot of experience and knowledge in life that you can lean on that can make you pick these things up. But instead, a lot of people tend to, "Oh, I can't do that. It's new," or whatever. They kind of shut down when they get older. And I think that's so sad because even you listen to Gary Vee, he's like talks, if you're 50 or 60 years old, you think you're ready to throw in the towel. No, you're just starting. You got another 20, 30 years in front of you, barring some crazy freak, car accident or something weird or disease. The length of life and how long we're actually able to live and be productive is getting longer all the time, especially with these new things, AI and Neuralink and all these advancements. Even if you're 40, 50, 60, you might have another 20 or 30 good years in front of you. So now is the time to pick up a new skill.
Yes. Or advance a present skill. So even,
Right.
of course, we should always be picking up new skills, but assuming that we know everything there is to know, or that there's no way to further our existing strengths or skill sets is terribly short-sighted. There's always the next level in what we're already good at. Two of the things, well, so many of the things that we talked about are related to tools of titans. Tim Ferriss gathers so many titans, and so it's good to explore a broader group of these were amazingly accomplished individuals that he interviewed and that he shared, and so each one of them he shared highlights, and what they had in common was they asked bigger questions. They asked different questions of themselves. And they all had rules and habits. They created custom, unique to their, whatever their goals were or whatever their strengths were. They created their own rules and their own habits to get to where they wanted to get. And that's what we've talked about, and has everything to do with mindset. Where we start from and our perspective and where we want to go is really going to be the driver of that.
Like the Ronin,
Yeah.
creating your own path, the
Yeah.
masterless, the wandering man.
And you have to have
You have to
rules
create,
and goals
right,
and habits. Yes.
discipline. Exactly. You've got to have those. You can create them for yourselves, but you have to follow these patterns. You have to follow these rules. What works for you? Always keeping in mind the end result and where you want to go on your journey, but you have to have a framework and a structure within that process.
Yeah.
I think that's important for people. But yeah, I'm glad we got to dig into that a little bit because I knew a lot of your story and I was part of it, like you coming to Mexico right after the stem cells. I was the first person outside of the medical staff that actually saw you.
Yes. And yeah, because of the timing, it was right after that. So that's why nobody else, that's unique to you. And then even in
Yeah.
that time period, that 2 weeks that I was there, every single day I was evolving and getting stronger. It was hard to believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that had to feel so amazing after what nearly, like you said, 9.5 years of intense pain, being bedridden, dealing with all that kind of stuff. It had to be like being released from prison,
It felt crazy to be able to sleep.
which is something we kind of all take for granted, really.
Yeah. And for the first 7 days, Dr. Gonzalez called every single day to check on me in the morning. And I think it was on the fourth day after I had been there, I answered differently. So he was kind of, Susan, is that you? And I said, yes. Yes, it's me. Hello. He goes, how are you today? It's crazy, but I woke up with Tigger inside. He said, what? Who's Tigger? But I had so much energy that that's how I could describe it as Tigger. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo.
Yeah.
It was just
Uh,
so
I was
astonishing
thinking
to
Tony the
me.
Tiger. We're great.
Yes.
I'm old. It's all good. But yeah, that's so awesome because that perseverance, that level of perseverance and grit and everything is all mindset. It is.
Oh,
And
cool.
you found the solutions, you gutted it out, and that is one of the reasons that I have just the highest level of respect for you because I saw
Thank you.
it.
Thank you. I can't take full credit for it though. I mean, a part of it is that it's in my nature. We can all create it, but it honestly is in my nature. I had the most incredible parents that they both are, action oriented, goals, etc. So I have to mention them. It's not, I didn't do it myself. And then worth mentioning, and I'm not just saying that because we're here on the Ronin Mindset and you're hosting the call. And you know this, but I have to say this for the audience, Steve. It's a big part of choosing very intentionally who you surround yourself with. So you can do all the work and get your mindset in a certain way, but it's so easy, your environment, to offset it and disrupt that. And so I was very particular about who I spent time with, who had any sort of energy in my world. And I cut out a lot of people. It wasn't easy, but I cut out anything that was negative or not the energy that I needed. It might not have been bad energy, but if it wasn't the energy that would support this mission that I was on, they were cut out for the time being. It didn't mean for always. And so as we did regular, sometimes weekly sessions where we were creating content together. And so you were a big part of that. It was always on the upflow. It was always something new that we talked about. It was challenging. We would discuss things. And that is a huge part of it. So I didn't do it alone.
You know what is, well, it's not, I was going to say it's funny. It's not funny. It's just this absolute common thread with every single person I talk to who has any level of success. Inevitably, if we're talking mindset and we're talking how to position yourself correctly to achieve whatever you want to achieve in life, whether it's, a happy relationship or financial goals or whatever it is, every single person without fail says that the people that you surround yourself is absolutely critical. You're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with the closest. And it's it's I think it's very telling, to be honest, that whenever you talk to somebody or whenever you truly listen to somebody who's trying to share tidbits and mindset, every single one of them is going to mention that. Every person I've talked to on this podcast, I think, has mentioned that.
Really?
And you brought it up without me trying to coax it out of you, you know. So I think, when you talk to successful people, you're going to see common threads always, always, and that's one of the strongest ones. So, and if anybody is really looking to improve their situation, no matter where you're at. I mean, a lot of people think they have it bad, even including me. Like I went through depression. All I had lost was money and stuff, homes, cars, all that. But it hit me so hard. I wasn't going through anything near what you were going through. I wasn't going through anything near what many thousands of people have gone through.
But you defined yourself with it, right?
Right. You adopt that as like your identity. Oh, I'm this, whatever. And it's tough to shake that. And then you look and you see people who are truly going through it. And it can be kind of humbling. It puts things in perspective. Like, why the hell am I letting this define me? So people are going through much worse and accomplishing much more.
Absolutely. There's always somebody worse off.
Oh, always. Not that you always want to get caught up in playing the comparison game, but it's true.
It's important to do the comparison for perspective.
Yes. Not to see who's better, who's doing more, or you're trying to beat somebody. That's the wrong kind of comparison. But if you can look at it from like, okay, put things in perspective in your life. There are people, whatever anybody's going through right now that they think is the block between them and success. There's somebody who has started in a much worse position and overcome much worse things to accomplish much more than you even want.
So then you can too.
Exactly.
If
100%.
they can, I can too. That's a good, whether you want to call it meditation or an attribute that you just speak to yourself every day. They can, so I can too.
100%. 100%. Because we're all human beings. We all have 24 hours in the day. What we do with those is largely going to be dictated by our mindset, which is going to dictate our actions and how we stack those little wins every day, whatever they are, whether it's a video game, getting up on time, scheduling a podcast guest, making those sales calls, whatever it is, you got to stack those wins every day. And it starts with your mindset. The first thing when you wake up in the morning, you're going to win that day.
Yeah.
So awesome. Well, I was looking forward to having you on. I'm glad you could carve out some time. I know you're super busy with the company and all that, but this is absolutely amazing. I really appreciate it.
Excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. I can't wait to get this thing on the road, and hopefully we can talk again in the future.
Yes, please.
Because in a few short weeks I'm going to be in Thailand, and after that I have no plans whatsoever. A lot of it will depend on whether I like it, what the visa will allow me, where I go after that, who knows? I'll figure it out. But it's
Because you can go wherever you want to.
exactly, exactly. So as long as I got good internet and a background, I'm going to be good. So awesome, homie. Well, I appreciate it. Susan Bachelder is, if anybody wants to follow you or get a hold of you, what's your socials? What's
Susan Bachelder. So Facebook, Instagram are really the two main ones. LinkedIn is fine, and I use my name as my username. So Susan Bachelder, Bachelder.
right? Awesome. Well, follow her. She's an inspirational woman, and I'm gonna let you go. But once again, really appreciate your time.
Thank you.